I can generally beat Tron if I'm just facing down Wormcoils and Karn, and I have some way of interacting with them in the early game with Inquisition and Thoughtseize, and Liliana can like trying to mess up their hand. Also, like Olivia can steal the Wormcoils, so like it's a big race against Tron because you can't let them get to Emrakul because once they play Emrakul, you just lose. And that's true in any matchup for Tron. Like that's their end game is just Emrakul you, and no deck can really live against that. So taking out their Emrakul is really nice. It's also great against eggs. I know egg sides in the what's it called? The Leyline of Sanctity, so you can't target them. But again, that's one of the reasons why we're running the one pulse in the main. We also have the second pulse in the sideboard. These are also cards I bring in against eggs because, again, popping off their eggs, just like with the Ancient Grudges, prevents them from comboing off. And as long as eggs is not comboing off, then you're probably winning that game because, like, you just need to get it to the point where Liliana sticks, you just kind of wreck their hand and they run out of gas and can't do it. So, yeah, that's about. If you do cast slaughter games against eggs, most of the time I would name the Lotus Bloom, but it kind of depends because if they have one suspended, you might want to name one of their either Second Sunrise or Face Reward, whatever you're scared of, and you also bring in Graveyard Hate against them as well, obviously. So that's Jund. Let's go ahead and talk about another deck. Yes, Modern America Control. Okay, this deck I've been having a lot of fun with lately. 3 colonnades, pretty simple mana base. The one of Urza's Factory, which is tap 7 and tap it, so a total of 8 mana to put a 2/2 colorless assembly worker artifact onto the battlefield. Not a card that a lot of people have seen, but this is actually one of the primary win conditions in the deck. The deck doesn't have a lot of win conditions, first off. What I did is I took the shells of the Delver decks of the America Aggro, America Control, the ones with Restoration Angel, the ones with all those lists, the ones with Geist of St. Traft, and I turned it into a super Wafatapa style control deck that has very little win conditions. Its win conditions are just like you have like a few colonnades and like snaps and bolts and electrolyzes. That's usually kind of how you win, is just kind of getting there by burning them to the face. And in Modern, a lot of people are taking a lot of damage off of their fetches and shocklands and whatnot, and just kind of painting life here and there. And so this deck is kind of punishing them by using Bolt as not only one of the best removal spells in Modern, and Electrolyze is also a great spell in Modern. But if you get into control of a game with a bunch of cryptic commands and a bunch of cards in hand, you can really, really punish a lot of people just by playing a control matchup against someone who's trying to like play a deck like Jund that's trying to 2-for-1 you with everything. Once this deck gets in control, there's no getting out of it. Chaining Sphinx's Revelation is just nasty. Cryptic Command, obviously one of the most versatile cards ever printed. And being able to snapcast them back is great as well. One of the most noticeable things in this deck, first of all, you'll see Izzet Charm. I've been saying for a long time that Izzet Charm is the future of Modern, and I think that it'll also see quite a bit of play in Legacy if red ever becomes a more prominent color. But I love this card. It does everything. It kills Death Rights, it spell pierces, it filters out bad cards that you don't need late game when you're digging for something. It's just the nuts. It's snapcastable, it's removal, it's everything. I've got a Shadow of Doubt in here, which is an interesting card. I haven't had it be amazing for me yet, but I haven't been testing it for very long, so I'm going to let it sit in there for a while. And obviously it's just a one-of, so you can use this in response to fetch lands, and then it's like a sinkhole, and then you draw a card. Seems pretty good. That's obviously the ideal situation, but even against like Tron, if they go to use their Expedition map or they go to use Sylvan Scrying, you can use the Shadow of Doubt in response, and they can't do that anymore. Or against like Eggs, they go to Reshape, and they already sacked their artifact because you have to sack an artifact as part of the cost of Reshape, and then they just can't search their library, which means they can't combo off that turn. So you'll see that I cut Mana Leaks. I'm actually running Spreading Seas now. and this is actually Spreading Seas is actually the first card that I added to this deck when I first started building was 4 Spreading Seas, because I really like that card. It's just the card I want in every single one of my opening hands. Against Eggs, hitting their Ghost Quarters is huge. Against Tron, obviously hitting their Tron lands is huge. Against Jund, and especially the Jund decks that are running 4 colors, it's just literally like you'll just win games because you had 2 or 3 Spreading Seas in your hand and just cycled into Cryptic and then got control of the game and they couldn't do anything. But yeah, there's lots of people are relying on their lands right now. Even this deck, Spreading Seas is good against, because if you're running 4 Spreading Seas, then you have answers to every single one of their win conditions in their deck with the 3 Colonnades and the Urza's Factory. A lot of people's win conditions are on their lands right now. I've even seen like Kessig Wolfrun and Nephalia's Drownyard start to get more popular, as Modern has started to slow down because they keep kind of banning the best thing out of Modern. Which I like, because they're trying to make Modern so that it's not a format where every game ends on turn 3, where you actually get into these long, grindy matchups, and this is precisely the deck that is going to do that. Snapcaster Mage, great card, just does everything. You need to be a little careful of Snapcaster Mage when siding in your Rest in Peace, because obviously we don't really use the graveyard except for Snapcaster. Actually, we don't use the graveyard at all except for Snapcaster, but we still need to hate on graveyards, and Rest in Peace is one of the best ways to do that. Electrolyze, just great spell, running a heavy 4 of them. You could run less, but it's just, I mean, it's a nice card. I mean, this deck, really what it does is it just wants to play a land and pass the turn, and play a land and pass the turn, and play a land and pass the turn. That's all it wants to do. Because once you get up to like 14 lands, you just start, because all you do is wrath them and path their shit, and Sphinx's Revelation, and get a Batterskull online eventually, and then like Snapcast Cryptics and Cryptic things, and then like eventually just like finish them with a Colonnade or something. It's an extremely good deck. Detention Sphere is just a nice catch-all. I am having trouble with Liliana in this metagame. If someone plays a turn 2 Liliana against me and I didn't kill their Deathrite, because that happens if they're on the play, this deck struggles with Liliana quite a bit, so Detention Sphere is there to deal with it. Supreme Verdict, I feel, is really good right now. There's some matchups where it's a dead card against like Tron or Eggs, but against any kind of junk deck, any aggro deck, any mid-range deck, even Jund, you can really blow them out. Like if they go turn 1 Deathrite into Loxodon Smiter into, like Bob and Goyf, and then you just Supreme Verdict their board. I know that sounds like the ideal situation, and it totally is, but you'd be amazed at how much that actually happens. I was running 4, but because of those matchups where it is just a completely dead card, I was forced to move down to 3, just because I couldn't afford to have a bunch of dead cards in my hand against a combo deck that was killing me pretty quickly. Izzet Charm helps you filter cards like that with his Supreme Verdict. Another reason why I love this Izzet Charm is because in those matchups where Supreme Verdict is dead, you can use the Izzet Charm to filter those out, and also Snapcast it later for its Spell Pierce effect against a combo deck, like when they try to Scape Shift or whatever. Cryptic Command, again, one of the most versatile cards ever printed. Batterskull is an awesome win condition, very good in the metagame right now, and once you get to a critical mass of mana and you're able to play it and re-equip it onto things and bash with it and return it when they try to target it, that card gets out of control. And also great against, once you stabilize, like sometimes you stabilize at a really low life total, so having something to gain you life back is really nice. And then, speaking of life gain, the Sphinx's Revelation is awesome as well. But when you're in a pinch, the Batterskull is much better to slam as a 5-drop than the Sphinx's Revelation. So these are kind of all the same card right here. Although I like that Batterskull wins you the game and it comes out sooner, because I generally don't like Revelationing for 2. You want to do it for like 3, 4, 5. But it's still a great card, and chaining Revelation after Revelation after Revelation will just win you a game. Simply based on card advantage. So going to the sideboard, we have the Celestial Purge, obviously to deal with red and black permanents, but primarily this card comes in to deal with Liliana. It's just, no matter what amount of counter she's at, you're able to purge it and repurge it with a Snapcaster, because you gotta kind of realize that every card in your deck, with how long the games drag out and running the full playset of Snapcaster, like there are games where I cast Cryptic Command 8 times in that game, and because I just cast every one on my deck and I Snapcast Cryptic 4 times. and it's not crazy for games to go to like turn 27 until they end because you just don't have that many win conditions, but they can't do anything, and then you're just beating them down with like a 2-2.